In Magic the Gathering, all lands are not created equal. Whether you're casting a Cultivator Colossus, Ragavan, the Wandering Emperor, Jin Taxus, the Progress Tyrant, no matter which card's hitting the battlefield, which enchantment you're casting out there, they all were dependent on the mana base to be built properly to make the rest of the deck succeed. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here, and thank you once again for hanging out with me on my channel today and joining in the conversation of Magic the Gathering. I'm going to give Wizards of the Coast a pat on the back. Just a couple pats. Because the mana base that they've provided over the last several years, I think are exceptional. They've added to a lot of variation in gameplay, a lot of creative brews, and a lot of fun for the players to really dive into it and have a good time when they leave us enough room to enjoy the products they're putting out. When I look at all the deck options I have available compared to how it was back in the day, these sets now provide variation that can be continued and built upon for years to come. The inventiveness of the R&D department at Wizards of the Coast has added that kind of ability for us to explore parts of the game we never thought possible, to include better options for multicolor decks, as well as the ability to still go a monocolor and have a good chance of success. These things do rotate out in the standard formats, but they do find homes when you hit the eternal formats, things like Commander and Casual Play, and whatever formats may come out in the future. This style of play and the lands they've provided in the mana base just gives so many more options for players to go over. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a lot of the land choices that are available to you. Which ones I think are the most important to keep and hold on to, and which ones you may consider buying for yourself and not giving up after you have a hold of them. Because remember, when it comes to a mana base, after you've bought the cards or after you've opened them in a pack, you don't really want to trade them away or ever give them away. This way, if they're ever reprinted or they're ever needed for a deck, you always have them. And after you have at least one playset, you never have to worry about a reprint again. When these cards are done, they're built usually for a standard rotation, then they rotate out. They're there for a couple of years, like the pathways and stuff. We'll go over that stuff today. But when you look at those cards, they're good. They're fantastic. And now they may come around again years later. And if you held on to them, if you kept your triumphs, kept your stuff, you don't have to worry about it. Don't worry about the investment side. It'll take care of itself if you care about that stuff. But owning these cards and having them is more important than having to rebuy them later and hoping that a reprint comes soon enough for you to actually take exposure on the market and maybe make some money. Let's take a look at some of these amazing cards together, and I'll explain which ones I think are the most important ones to hold on to. The one thing I want to remind everyone, anyone watching the video right now, is any of these lands, they're going to get reprinted. Any of the lands I'm showing you in today's video will be reprinted. You can't stop the wheels from turning, so don't try. And look at the lands for what they are and their utilitarian purposes inside of certain deck builds, depending on where Wizards of the Coast puts certain mana bases and newly created mana bases, determines sometimes how well a series or a particular expansion is received. Things like Ikoria, the fact they put the triumphs in there really gets things going. And here we have Seachrome Coast, okay, Scars of Meriden. Now, this land is interesting in the fact that it does come into play tapped if you have more than 2 lands in play already. So Seachrome Coast enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. Now, depending on the build you're using, cards like this can be vital for your game state. You may need cards like this, or you're on a budget and you can't afford to get a Tundra. This kind of card can save you a lot of money, and it's only $11.21 US, and the price is still crashing down. The market is not receiving a lot of these lands well, but if you ever happen to open cards like this has been reprinted, I think, in Zendikar Rising. They had the expeditions this was in. So if you happen to get these cards and got them for $5, $6, $7, you never let cards like this go. You hold on to them at least until you have a play set. Then you can have a trade binder with extra cards inside, but it's always a card to hold on to because you're going to use it. Now, the next one here, Castle Vantress, Throne of Eldraine. These are what I call imitation lands. These lands are based on old reserve list lands that have been kind of simplified and have pricier costs. This is just a copy of Soldevi Excavation that's a little bit skewed to a certain side. When you look at Castle Ventress, let's take a closer look here so you guys can see it. Yeah, the market value is less than $1. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control an island. So it can come into play untapped, but it has that added effect of 2 blue, 2 other, and Scry 2. This was a very popular land when Eldraine was out there, okay? And we're going back to Eldraine this year, but this land really hit it on the head. People really enjoyed it. But I just consider these imitation. All the lands you see in Eldraine are all copies of cards from alliances. Soldevi Excavations is a copy, this is a copy of that. Castle Aldrin, the one that makes the 1/1 creatures, that's just a copy of Kil'jaeden Outpost. They're worse because they cost more and do more damage to yourselves, and the game effects that they cause cost more, but it is a good imitation land if you don't have those cards or don't want to pay for them or need to use it in a more modern format, or if you just want to double up. For less than $1, why not, right? So this is a card I would have no problem spending $5 and getting 4 copies of and just holding on to it forever. Although I might go for the full art extended versions and pay an extra few dollars just because it'll be a fancier, cooler look to it. And they're the original printing of the card. Now, this is what I call a hiccup. I love a good hiccup because you don't know where a card like this will go 5 years from now. Wizards can do things to break cards like this. And let me explain. We have a card from Commander, and right, the Commander decks, the Brothers War. Now we have Mishra's Workshop, which of course is a reserve list card that's super powerful, amazing. And here we have Urzas Workshop. Add 1 waste colored mana to your mana pool. Metalcraft. Add 1 wasteland mana for each Urza's land you control. Activate only if you control 3 or more artifacts. So all you have to do for a card like this is start looking at all the lands that say Urza in them. And there are a few. And for years to come, this can accumulate now. Wizards can put the odd Urza land, right, in some kind of retro set or just a new thing for a Modern Horizons deck, harkening back to the old days of nostalgia. Put cards like that in there to build up the value of a card like this. So a hiccup card like this, where I don't know where it's going to go, right? Even the Urza Saga land, I wasn't sure about that, but it obviously proved itself pretty quick. This is a card that I do have 4 of, and I will hold all 4. Am I going to get more? Probably not, but if I opened more, I probably wouldn't sell them, because I'm not sure what Wizards' intentions are for a card like this going forward. This is a card that you're just not sure of, so if you get it, it's not worth a lot anyway. Hold on to cards like that. Now, Luxury Suite. Of course, I use this in my Commander deck, but these kind of lands, and this is the one from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate, they were hoping would bolster up the value of Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate, but they made the mistake of not making it an actual Commander set properly. It's a great set, lots of fun cards that I loved and still enjoy, and some are underrated and underpowered. But I look at this and say, it's an okay land. I, of course, am going to use it, but its value has tanked. Now, Luxury Suite enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. So this is a dual land as long as you've got a game of Commander going, which is amazing. It's built for Commander specifically to get around the dual land rule of being on the reserve list. Cards like this is a Badlands. That's what it is. And when you're playing Commander, it'll function like a Badlands. Love it, great, and it's super inexpensive. But again, if Wizards wants cards like this to go up in value, they are going to drag this out, guys. I want you to understand that. They are not going to reprint this for a long time now. They'll let the value drift back up to that $20, $30, $40 range. Just by not printing it, that's what's going to happen. And that's what you have to consider with lands like this. So should you buy a playset for $25? Yes, you should. And after you own all 4, you don't have to worry about it. And I would get all the different variations as well. Just, in my opinion, I would do it right away before some of these cards start ticking upwards in the next couple of years. Now, Otawar, the Soaring City. All these lands from Kamigawa and Neon Dynasty are all good. They're all decent, but they're actually a little bit high priced right now. I bought my first copy of Otawara for $4 on the pre-release. It was in the thing. I bought it right away from the what do you call it, the glass cabinet there from the store. I said, hey, I'll take those. That's a good card. I don't know why people like this card. And within a week or so, it started going up. People recognized it. Now, cards like this again, probably won't see a repeat, maybe a secret layer, but probably won't see a repeat for a while. And Kamigawa Neon Dynasty cards moved on pretty quick, right? Money moved on. So cards like this won't get the reprint people think it's going to get right away. You kind of have to go back to the Kamigawa block, and it won't happen for a while. So expect cards like this not to drift up quickly, but slowly over time go up 50 cents, 40 cents, 60 cents here or there, until before you know it's a $20 card. I kept a play set, and I have an extra play set later on for trading if I need to, because after I have one play set, I really don't need more, but I always like to have a play set of lands that I get. So that's what I did with this card. It makes perfect sense to me. You guys can let me know what you think in the comment section. Oh, I love it. Here we go. We are talking about the wonderful, amazing fetch lands. Here we have Misty Rainforest. Look at it tank down in price. Remember when this thing used to be like $100? Wizards reprints it a few times, makes it really easy to get inside of Modern Horizons 2, and this is where we end up with cards like this. This is original Zendikar printing, but the prices have tanked down. If you're going to buy it, I would go for the original Zendikar printing, because it doesn't cost that much more. Cards like this, if Wizards doesn't reprint them this year, and the market does start to slowly absorb the remaining stock, then you'll see a price shift. The thing I think is going to happen, though, is that the amount we have sitting on store shelves will take a very long time to be absorbed. So depending on how Wizards is watching the secondary market and hoping the values to increase, I think you're looking for a card like this to recover to like the $30, $40, $50 range. You're talking 3-4 years of market absorption of slowly taking those cards out. I know a lot of stores right now that have these sitting in the back room and did not put them on the shelves because the price tanked too far. So this card and all the fetch lands out there, I guess we're waiting for a reprint on the opposite ones, but we'll get there. These cards, especially like Arid Mason stuff, when they were like $15, of course I bought some. I needed some for some future Commander decks. Of course I bought a whole bunch. They were $15 each. These cards will recover, but it's going to take time, and it really depends on Wizards not reprinting them. All right, the Triumphs. Ikoria. This is a brilliant creation of a mana base that you should own. I remember telling people to buy these at $5 each. And a lot of you did listen who were early members of my channel. You jumped in there, you dived in this, same as I did. I'm like, $5? Are you kidding me? These things give us 3 mana. They come into play tap, but I can get cycling out of it. It's amazing. And then when you think of the newer cards we have right now, like Sarah Paragon, I can cycle the card to draw a card and then play it with Sarah Paragon anyway and put it into play. So that's kind of awesome. Amulet of Vigor and stuff like that can make these things come into play untapped. There's also enchantments and stuff that can make all your cards untap every turn. This is a decent card. Now, these things were at 20-something. They've come down. The second half of them came out in Streets of New Capenna. The Streets of New Capenna ones are a little bit harder to come by the way. Remember that. It wasn't opened as broadly as Ikoria was because we were all home during COVID and stuff. This kind of card is a little more common. You're going to find the New Capenna ones later on. And they don't call them Triumphs, which does bother me, but that's neither here nor there. They are the lands we need, so they're great. I think we'll see these cards sit right where they are. Wizards will keep these reprinting often enough that it's going to happen, okay? You don't have to worry about them. They're going to be around for a while. Now, Yavamaya Cradle of Growth, as well as Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. This style of mana base, which is yet to be completed, is one of the ones I consider the most powerful. Yavamaya Cradle of Growth. Each land is a forest in addition to its other land types. So think about every other land out there. And all the old reserve list lands that don't tap for colors or don't do anything. This mana base, this color wheel that isn't complete yet, could really radically alter how people do deck building for Commander, as well as other formats that have yet to be invented, legacy vintage style stuff, with these kind of mana-based cards in there if they ever complete the set. If Wizards wants to drive sales, if they do Modern Horizons 3 and they put the white one, the blue one, the red one in there, guys, we are going to have some crazy times ahead of us. If they give us even one of them, showing they're closer to completing the wheel, it's going to give that set some success. Now, when you look at cards like this, they're based on old things like Gaia's Cradle, old powerful cards that give that nostalgic feeling of the original powerhouse card that these old ones were, but not quite where we're at nowadays. They need to make it a little more bland, a little bit more contingent on other game effects happening, but it's still a great card, and it really could change things up, and the price has never been lower. I bought a whole whack load of the retro art frame ones because I love the look of them, but I knew there'd probably be some value there later down the road. So I do own multiple play sets of that particular land because they were too cheap to pass up. And the last one I want to mention today, and that's going to be the pathways. We got those in Zendikar Rising, and we also got those cards when we visited Kaldheim. Okay, now these are very simplistic. When you bring into play, you choose which side it's going to come into. So it's going to come in as a blue land in this case, or the white land, and you choose what you need for your mana supply. It's beautiful, it's simplistic, very close to, I guess, the feel of a dual land, except for, you know, you can't alter it unless you can find a way to unsummon it and bring it back. But it's a decent land that's very inexpensive. These things were around that $15 mark, but they've crashed all the way down, and I think they're actually going to bottom out at around $4. I think they'll go lower than this. And I know a lot of you right now are probably wondering why I didn't mention Shocklands. Yes, Shocklands should be there, but the problem with Shocklands right now is they're a great land. You know, they come into play, you know, tapped, or you take 2 damage and they're untapped. Good cards, same as the other pain lands, you know, 1 tap damage. I like those kind of cards, they're decent, but Shocklands are due for a reprint. They should be coming around, so those cards are not ones I would even look at right now. They are going to get reprinted because they can't have the prices of Shocklands going that high. And for those who think Unfinity is a reprint of those, no, it's not. It's not. They weren't common enough in Unfinity because stores don't really have a lot of them on the shelves. They got bought up and they've been bought into people's collections, and then nobody opened Unfinity. So it's sitting on store shelves not being opened. So there's no supply meeting the demand. We need a basic standard set. We need a return to Ravnica, return to Ravnica to really start getting things going there. We need some Shockland challenge on the Taco Kings channel and get these cards flowing into people's hands because they do need them, but you got to make it a more inexpensive card for the player base. Some of these cards here are not going to come around for years. Others, like the Shocklands, are due for a reprint, and the Painlands just came out again right now in Dominaria United. It wasn't the best mana-based choice in my opinion. They should have chosen some other cards and made a few new ones. But it's okay. It is what it is. So I hope you guys got a good feel for how I'm feeling about these lands. Love to see your opinions in the comments section. Join that conversation, Magic. This is where that conversation lives, where we get to discuss all this stuff. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for being on the channel. And hey, we're only about, what, 25 to 30 subscribers away from hitting the next 100 and counting down to get to 16,000 subs. Thanks again for being here, guys. Thanks for hitting that subscribe button and the thumbs up videos. And of course, to my regular viewers, my Patreon members, thanks again, everyone. We'll see you all tomorrow. Hey, and a big shout out and thank you to the Patreon members, to my YouTube membership members, guys, for supporting my channel. Without you guys being here, there wouldn't be time to do all this extra stuff. Thanks again, everyone. Well, hey, welcome back, everyone. We're here at the end. Glad you're hanging out. It's really late at night at this point. It was a long day at work, and I have to get this video and the next one done. So you know what? The funny thing is when you see the next video, or wait, this one's filmed first? Whatever one, they're the same shirt. Because I filmed them all at the same time. I prepped up everything because, you know, it's my birthday weekend. I'm going to be busy. Shh, don't say anything. Shh, you can put birthday in the comment section because my birthday's coming up this weekend. So I'm going to be kind of... But I'll have videos ready. Don't worry. I'll have videos ready. I'll be around. I'll be here. I'll be checking the comment sections. I miss you guys too much not to celebrate a little bit. So yeah, thanks for being here. Have a nice late night coffee and let's get this party rolling. Let's get things finished. Remember, comment section, birthday. Moxman's birthday. Scary stuff this weekend. I'm getting old. 47. Boomstick.